Ever been to a drag race? No? Then hang on. We're going to take you for a spin and show you why drag racing, believe it or not, is America's most popular spectator sport. All year long, from one end of the country to the other, at hundreds of tracks, north, south, east, west, millions of people come to watch thousands of cars try to get from one end of a quarter-mile track to the other in the shortest possible time, seemingly by making as much noise as they possibly can. That's drag racing, as it first meets the eye and the ear. Streaks of color roaring past with deafening noise and eye-smarting, nostril-pinching clouds of smoke and fumes. We're at Bristol International Dragway, a super drag strip nestled in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. It's the site of one of the 10 big races that determine the national championship. We're here early. The track is deserted. The stands empty. But not for long. True drag racing fans, and there aren't any other kind, come early for the time trials. And the cars come early too. 400 to 500 cars per event. Mostly of the stock class, meaning not too different from what you'd find on a dealer's showroom floor. And their drivers, the youngsters who make up the bulk of the entries, sacrifice lunch and girlfriends to test their gear ratios and fuel mixtures again and again. No car ever seems to arrive ready to go. The fans come from everywhere. Paid drag racing attendance is on the verge of topping 20 million persons a year. And that's a mark few other spectator sports come close to. 2 by 2. And 1 by 1. And family by family. The fans pour in, bringing their own, as you can see. It's going to be a long, hot, thirsty day. On the whole, it's a young man's sport. The average age of the spectators is just under 23 years. A recent survey showed that 40% of the crowd at the big national events were college-educated. The survey also turned up 594 different occupational titles, from priests to professors, from physicians to baseball players. But the unsung heroes are the men in the pits. Some of these mechanics are Vietnam veterans who worked on battle-damaged equipment. A little different from tinkering around in the garage. Drag racing attracts the serious interest of automotive engineers, Detroit included, and a whole flock of lubrication, fuel, and parts makers who find out what their products can do under the most demanding conditions. What's in it for the drivers? A top pro can clear $150,000 a year in a sport that used to offer no prize money at all. Just the thrill of it. Those were the old days. And not necessarily the good old days. When you hitched your car to a truck and drove 800 miles to Michigan just for some local race on a beat-up track. And there wasn't even room at the end of the track to turn around, and you had to spin. Things are a lot different now. The top drivers arrive in style. Their cars are delivered in trailers like thoroughbred horses. Binoculars in the control tower keep a constant eye on things below. So does John Lundberg, the famous voice of drag racing. As familiar a sound at the track as the roar of the engines themselves. Taking a seat in the stands, we look down on the traditional pre-race parade of stars in review. This is the last time today they'll creep along at this speed. The automobiles aren't the only frames that catch the eye. The girls in the control tower will keep track of the cars and their times as the split seconds tick off on the chronodeck. No handheld stopwatch would be quick enough to measure these speeds, where a thousandth of a second can mean winning or losing. One of the most crowd-pleasing effects at a drag race is the burnout. A mixture of rosin and bleach is poured in front of the rear wheels. The car is moved into the puddle and full power applied to spin the wheels furiously. The results of this spectacular procedure assure clean, hot tires. Very often the ritual is repeated at the starting line, with an actual track of fresh khaki rubber laid down to give the car a good gripping start. There can be no racing on a wet track. For maximum traction, these tires have no tread at all. Hence their nickname, slicks. Tow cars are pressed into service to help dry the track. Some of these paint jobs cost over $1,500. Only a few years ago, a mathematician figured out it was physically impossible for a drag car to cover a quarter mile in less than 7 seconds. The current record is 6.55 seconds, held by Don Garth. All you have to do is hang on. At 150 miles per hour, the wheel threatens to leap from your hands, while a force of 2 G's backs into your chest like an elephant. After a few seconds of that, you're faced with up to 5 G's negative deceleration as the chute opens. Where races are won or lost by a thousandth of a second, the start off the line is all important. There can be no red lighting. That is, no jumping the gun. The electronic starting lights take care of that. 2 times are important for the drivers. Elapsed time, measured from the beginning of the quarter mile to the end, and trap time, the last 132 feet of the run, which measures speed in miles per hour. The mechanics, called tuners, can get help from the specialty companies whose parts they're using, like Pennzoil, Carter Carburetor Company, Clean Oil Company, and the Hearst Corporation. The Hearst 8-wagon comes into the pit to lend its expertise in shifting mechanisms. Even with the experts' advice, these boys work in challenging conditions, dealing with tolerances that would make a garage mechanic flinch. One thing's for sure, any young man who'd rather make something than break something gets a constructive opportunity here. Whatever he's putting together in the pit better hold up on the track. Besides being the American Hot Rod Association Driver of the Year in 1969, Dick Harrell is a top-notch mechanic who builds and services cars for other drivers. The relationship between the cars and the speed equipment industry is closer than peanut butter and jelly. And the cars proudly wear as many sponsors' decals as the luggage of a world traveler. Speed equipment sales were $500 million 3 years ago. Now they're over $1 billion. As we mentioned a bit earlier, sometimes those horses want to go in a direction all their own. Hold in. Hold it. You're out of your lane. Automatic disqualification. Drifting can be dangerous for both drivers. One holds up, seeing his competition has gone astray. Any car capable of speeds up to 200 miles per hour must have a parachute. And a car that can do better than 200 must have 2. Now let's see what the mounted camera saw. That was quick. In shooting this sequence, we used a new type of camera that slows the action down to 30 times slower than actual speed, giving you an idea of the terrific stresses placed on tires and car. Here it is in ultra-slow motion. Look at that body flex. Here it is at normal speed.
Looks like we're preparing the death-defying ride of E.J. Potter. 1,000 horsepower, nitro fuel guzzling 327 Chevy-powered motorcycle. Interesting note to you fans is that they are now going to conduct a procedure in the starting line known as a slick barbecue, wherein the motorcycle will be rocked up on a stand and the tire will be warmed in a puddle of flaming gasoline. There you go. PJ is trying to bring the temperature of that car up somewhere above 200 degrees as he makes a burn out of the starting line will be completely engulfed in smoke. Keep your eyes on the death-defying run. PJ Potter out of the gate. Watch that. City-powered motorcycles. He makes his way down to 1320. Completely engulfed in smoke and unseen here at the car. PJ makes his way into the final dance. We can tell by watching the lights in the far end. Turning at 9.62 or 9.62, the speed of that motorcycle, 166.35. 166.35. Every time going to the back of the...
Man and machine versus time and themselves. The art and the science. And the nerve to cover a quarter mile just as fast as your wheels can take you. That's drag racing. A sport that may be one of the newest, but is already one of the biggest. And if you wonder where it's going, well, chances are the kid next door, who's not even old enough yet to have a driver's license, has a model car kit that he's already converted to a drag racer, complete with supercharger and other high-performance items, right down to speed equipment suppliers' decals. Even the toddlers have their Hot Wheels sets. There are a lot of youngsters these days who dream of becoming drag stars, which means more than souped-up jalopies on a neighborhood street. Drag racing has come of age. In the spectrum of American sports, few match this spectacle for color and excitement. Drag racing? Well, it's anything but a drag.